Okay, here we are more with Terrible Swift Sword. This is up to the 12:20 turn on July 1st. As you can see, things have gotten fairly chaotic. Here along McPherson's Ridge, there's a few Confederate regiments that had kind of punched through the Union line but had no support behind them, and they've finally been kind of pushed back. The only one that hasn't is this 26th North Carolina here. They've still got about 5. This is the biggest regiment in the brigade, and decent morale, 2 out of 5. So they're still kind of pushing around. Cutler's, as you can see, Cutler's not here anymore. He was either wounded? Yeah, he was wounded, and then his replacement was wounded. And so this is a replacement of the replacement. I think you just continue to use the flip side of the counter even when the replacement is removed. I'm not sure if you would use one of the brigade replacement counters or not. As you can see, there's one of those over here. This is Brigade Commander A replacement, because Wadsworth, the division commander of the 1st Division, was captured, and Meredith, who is somewhere here, down here, he replaced Wadsworth as the division commander for the 1st Division, and so you put one of these replacement counters here to serve as the new brigade commander in this case, for the Iron Brigade. But as you can see here, the Union does not have a line as such. They do have, the Iron Brigade has held this position the whole time. Here's McPherson's Woods. Down here you've got the 2nd Brigade, 1st Division, or I'm sorry, 1st Brigade, 2nd Division, if I remember that right, because it's Iron Brigade is 111, and there's 121 and 131. 131 here was Rowley. He also was wounded, which is actually good for the Union, since his replacement is better than he was. So you've had Wadsworth captured, Cutler wounded, Cutler's replacement wounded, and Rowley wounded. So a bit of a, some high rate of officer casualties so far for the 1st Corps. I think over here we've got Doubleday in the 3rd Division. Somewhere, and you can see they're so jumbled up now because there's Reynolds there. Meredith is your 1st Division commander. Robinson here is your 2nd Division commander. And I'm not even sure where these 2nd Division guys are. There's some there. Yeah, it's gotten totally jumbled. Okay, the other one's over here with Baxter, who probably, yeah, at the moment out of command. These guys were moving into position back into command. The rules are not specifically clear on how long so when you march, when units come out as reinforcements, they can be considered in command if they're all in one big line, marching along the road, like the 11th Corps over here, for example. All these guys would be in command even if they're all stretched out, all along the road. I'm not exactly clear how long that lasts before they actually start deploying, because as you can see here, First Corps, Baxter's division here is, or Baxter's brigade rather, is deploying. All of his guys are within his command range, but he is decidedly out of Robinson's command range over there. So technically they'd be out of command and only able to move 1 hex. So what I probably would have done had I been aware of that, given that they're no longer kind of all coming onto the map, they're deploying into battle. Probably simply would have moved Robinson, left him on the road where he'd be within the 6 hex range for Baxter. So the Union is trying to finally get a line back in order now that they've kind of pushed the last of Pettigrew's regiments, except for these guys, which are shortly going to be pushed out by Rowley's reorganizing brigade over here, and this is part of Paul's brigade here. Should be enough to get around these guys and push them off the line. And they need to do it quickly, because as you can see, that's Pender's division moving in there, and those guys are big, and they are fairly high morale. So back here, I've got Archer. His brigade is wrecked. Brockenbrough is here. His brigade is also wrecked. Davis is here. His brigade is wrecked. So the only unwrecked Confederate brigade from Heath's division is Pettigrew. Pettigrew was over here in the turn track because he was captured. Captured or wounded? Captured. So he was the first officer lost for the Confederates. And as it turns out, that's kind of left these guys in a bit of a bind at the moment, because you have to wait until the next turn's command phase. I think that happened on the Union turn. So that they won't be able to replace them until after the Confederates have already had to do their moves and attacks and stuff for the turn. So, yeah, not great for them given the position that they're currently in. So the Union's going to try and slap together a functional line along McPherson's Ridge here. They do, at least now, finally have a significant amount of artillery in. I've got some here. First Corps artillery here, and somewhere under one of these stacks is the other piece of First Corps artillery that I had on the field. But these guys, I'm not sure. I may leave them here where they've got a clear field of fire, since the Confederates have pushed a brigade over here. An obvious way is that you've got more room this way to try and get around the Union flank, as opposed to over here. Plus, knowing what I know about the Confederate entry is you're going to have some Confederates coming on over here as it is. So, this isn't realistic that the Union is going to hold this through the afternoon. The more realistic plan is that they delay the Confederates as long as they can, and then once the Confederates start coming in here along the Mumsburg Road, this flank will start to refuse the line here. 11th Corps will come up, try and fill in this giant open, terribly open terrain here north of the town, and just hold on as long as possible. I will likely try and fight the historical battle here rather than being very gamey about it and just having 11th Corps start to build, Fortress Cemetery Hill here. I'll have them come up and historically, try and maintain a line here. But historically, I will probably leave von Steinwehr, who I think was the division that was historically left here on, or rather the brigade that was historically left here on Cemetery Hill, just to keep things interesting. I typically like my Gettysburg battles to look more like Gettysburg than some crazy alt history stuff. So the Buford's Cav, as you can see, I've run them over here. They're all mounted now out of skirmish formation. And I'll put them somewhere out here on the flank of the Union Army, just to keep the Confederates from getting too frisky about trying to move around this flank here and get in behind the Union forces. So At the moment, it is looking fairly historically like Gettysburg, although this is just a total chaotic jumble here of as the First Corps just was throwing units into the line to try and stem the Confederate tide, since I pushed rather ahistorically pushed pretty heavily with the Confederates on the morning of July 1st. So with the 11th Corps coming in, you can see they're just about all on the map there. Things will get a little more intense. We'll slow down a little bit, just because I'm going to have a lot more units on the board and actually fighting. Up to now it's gone pretty well with a nice, what I would consider a fairly clean and simple sequence of play. There wasn't a handy one provided in the rules, so I typed one out myself. But like this, the command phase, all this stuff is really simple. Your artillery, bombardment, counter battery fire is just typical artillery fire intended to fire at each other. Movement, defensive, offensive, retreat before melee, ammunition resupply, rally, command. And a lot of this stuff just gets skipped because you may not have anything that's affected by it. Usually it's pretty easy to see just in a glance if your guys are in command and things like that. So just a good, clean, simple sequence of play, in my opinion. Very well-written rules also, in my opinion, which is kind of unusual for Berg, who can a lot of times leave ambiguities or uncertainties or contradictions in the rules. But these are I think, very well done rules. My big complaint so far has been the charts. The game just blends the charts into the back of the rule book, so I had to make copies onto cardstock of the relevant charts, and I printed out a couple of homemade player aid, organized charts listing all the different DRMs and stuff. They're also not very well summarized in the charts. You kind of have to find the DRMs in the rules and then remember, oh yeah, they go on this or that particular table, which is not great in terms of organization. So, but otherwise, really enjoying the rule set and the game so far, and might be even make it into the second day of Gettysburg, which would kind of be first for me. I don't think I've ever played a full 3-day Gettysburg tabletop battle. I've played a lot of scenarios from the Gamer's Last Chance for Victory, but never a multi-day battle. So it should be pretty cool.